The Weight of Silence. In a remote village in Kenya, Kiambu County, nestled between dusty roads and withered maize fields, lived a man named George. He was in his early 40s but looked far older, his back bent slightly from years of carrying burdens far heavier than firewood. Life had been cruel to George, stripping him of many things: his youth, his dreams, and most painfully, his beloved wife, Nancy, who had passed away 5 years earlier during childbirth. She had left behind not just memories, but 2 small children, twins, Kevin and Alice. They had come into this world wailing, while their mother had slipped away in silence. Since that day, George had become both mother and father, learning to braid hair with trembling hands, soothe fevers with whispered lullabies, and cook millet porridge over open fire with eyes full of sorrow. George had once been a farmer, but droughts had scorched his land, and floods had washed away what was left. With no education and no employment opportunities in the village, he resorted to doing odd jobs for neighbors, fetching water, repairing leaking roofs, and chopping wood. But work was never steady, and most nights, the 3 of them went to bed on empty stomachs. One chilly morning, Kevin began coughing. It was a dry, painful cough that shook her little body like a leaf in the wind. And George thought it was the cold, so he wrapped her in all the cloth he could find. But the cough grew worse, and by the second week, Alice too had developed a fever so high it made him hallucinate. George was desperate. The nearest clinic was 15 kilometers away, and even if he could carry the children there, he had no money for treatment. He sold his only chicken for a small sum and borrowed a neighbor's bicycle. He tied Kevin to his back and placed Alice on the bike's frame, pedaling under the blazing sun. At the clinic, the nurse shook her head. Pneumonia for the girl, malaria for the boy. They need medication immediately. The cost was 45,000 shillings, an impossible amount for a man who hadn't seen 5,000 in months. He begged. He dropped to his knees, tears spilling down his cheeks, and whispered, "Please, save them. Take me if you must, but not my children." The nurse was kind, but limited. She gave him a few paracetamol tablets and instructions to keep them warm and hydrated. Try the hospital in town. Maybe they can help. Back at home, George tried every herbal remedy he knew. He crushed bitter leaves, boiled roots, and recited the prayers his mother once taught him. He sat by their mats every night, his eyes refusing sleep, watching the slow rise and fall of their tiny chests. Each breath they took felt like a victory. Some days were worse than others. Kevin cough would leave her unable to eat. Alice would cry from the aches in his limbs. George sang to them softly old lullabies, stories of the stars and the moon, tales of their mother's laughter and kindness. But there was a silence creeping in, an unbearable silence that settled over the hut like a fog. One morning, as the rooster crowed and the village stirred to life, and George noticed Kevin wasn't moving. He rushed to her side, his hands trembling, and gently shook her. Her body was still warm, but her spirit had gone. The scream that tore from his throat shook the birds from the trees. Alice, weak and barely conscious, opened his eyes and whispered, "Is Kevin sleeping?" George couldn't answer. His voice had drowned in grief. He buried her behind the hut, under a mango tree she once liked to climb. There was no coffin, only a wrap made from his old shirt and a mound of red earth. He sang to her one last time before covering her face with soil. Now, only he and Alice remained. The boy's fever was rising again. But George had nothing left, no food, no medicine, no tears. He sat outside that evening, the orange sun sinking into the hills like a dying flame. He held Alice close, rocking him slowly. His skin felt like fire against his chest. He whispered to the wind, "Forgive me, Aiken. I tried." The stars blinked into the sky, indifferent and silent. In the days that followed, a neighbor found George and Alice unconscious in their hut. A local missionary woman, hearing the story, intervened. She rushed Alice to a hospital in town and brought food and clean clothes for George. It took weeks, but Alice pulled through. George, though, was never the same. His eyes remained vacant, fixed on something far away. He still walked the village, helping others when he could. He'd sit under the mango tree for hours, talking to the silence, sometimes smiling, sometimes weeping. And every time someone asked about his life, he'd just say, "They were my stars. One is gone. one still shines. I walk in the dark so he can find the light. The end.
As we come before you, Lord, with hearts laid bare and souls restored, in the silence we seek your face. Fill this place with your endless grace. Remember us, oh Lord, we cry. In our weakness, you are nigh. Lift our burdens, heal our pain. In your love we rise again. In the shadows when hope seems gone, you are our light, our stay.